Combat Commander Europe is a two-player game covering tactical infantry combat in the European theatre of World War II. The game is one of GMT's most popular titles, and as it stands today in the wargames category over on Boardgame Geek, it is rated in the top 10, so it certainly has a good reputation. Now, before I jump into a quick overview of the game, it's worth noting that showing you the core mechanics of this game is not going to give you a feel for the actual gameplay. It's one of those games that you have to experience to fully understand how it plays out. You see, Combat Commander is a very eventful game, where random events may be triggered halfway through play that can really change how the game plays. So this is a very challenging game to review because there is no script for this game, no typical sequence of events the game tends to follow or anything like that. So with that said, I'll do my best and we'll move on and check out a brief overview of Combat Commander, but you have to keep in mind that I'm only going to scratch the surface. There is quite a bit to the game. So let's check it out. Combat Commander is a game that will have you set up and play a scenario from one of the 12 included in the playbook. This playbook will tell you which map to play on, where you can place your units, which units to use, and how to set up the track display, which the track display is a separate board that keeps track of various information throughout the game. Now in this overview, I'm only going to touch briefly on the winning conditions of the game. In general, the player at the end of the game with the most victory points will be the winner, and players throughout the game will be awarded victory points for a number of things, such as occupying key locations on the map or eliminating enemy units. When a player's units are eliminated, they are placed on the casualty track here, and if the number of eliminated units meets up with the surrender marker, that player will lose the game immediately. In each turn, players in a game of Combat Commander will play fate cards to perform orders and actions. Each army have their own deck of fate cards. These cards have a lot of information on them, as you can see. However, to learn the game, you only have to look at the orders and actions on each card. Ignore the rest of the text and icons for now. Orders are what are given to units or leaders on the map to do things, such as move them about, have them shoot at enemy units, attempt to rally them after they've been shot at themselves, or even have them advance into melee combat with an enemy unit. The amount of orders a player can give out each turn is dependent on the scenario's setup. Actions in the game can do a variety of things. They are played whenever the action's text says it can be played, so some actions can even be played in your opponent's turn. But for the moment, we'll return back to orders, as they are the most important thing to cover. To give one of your units an order, you simply place the card with the order listed that you wish to activate into your personal discard pile. Then you carry out the order with a unit of your choosing. Pretty simple stuff. If we have a look at the unit chits now, each individual chit will have some statistics printed on them. These stats are the unit's morale, which is used to see if a unit breaks. Usually this will come into play as a result of incoming enemy fire. A movement value, which simply states how many movement points a unit has to spend. The unit's firepower rating, which makes up part of the strength of the unit's attack. And this value here, which is the range of the weapon the unit is using. So let's take a closer look at a few of those orders in more detail. If I played a move order on this unit here, I could move them up to 4 movement points. Now for this example, I'll keep things simple. So to move this unit along this road will just cost 1 movement point per hex moved. But keep in mind, to enter different types of terrain, it may cost more than 1 movement point. So I'm just going to move this unit here 3 movement points. 1, 2, 3. And that's my first order done. Again, pretty simple stuff. Let's check out the firing order. Now I cannot order the same unit twice in a turn. So I'm going to order this unit over here with a firing order, and they will shoot at this Axis unit. The range for the firing unit is 3 hexes. This unit has a clear line of sight and a within range, so I now have to work out the strength of my attack. The strength of my attack is a unit's firepower rating, which is 5, and this is very important to keep track of. So before I do anything else, I place the attack total marker on the victory point path on the number 5, just to keep a record of my current attack total. You'll understand why we do this a little bit later on. Okay, I then have to make a roll and add the roll value to my attack total. The roll, however, is not a die roll. Well, it is, but not really. I make a roll by turning over the top card from my draw deck, and then I place it into my discard pile. As I do this, I look at the dice symbols printed in the lower right hand side of the card. I have a 4 and a 4 displayed. I then add these two numbers together to get 8. I then have to add my original firepower rating to this, which was 5, to get my final attack total of 13. Again, I keep track of this on the victory point track. So that's it. I have my final attack total. Now, wait a minute. I'm not done yet. You see how these dice symbols are surrounded by a red square? Well, if this happens during a roll, that means there is a trigger. Triggers can see events occur, guns get jammed, or maybe even snipers targeting random hexes on the map. And in this case, it's a sniper attack. So before I finish resolving my attack, I have to first resolve the sniper. I now draw another card from my draw deck, ignoring all information but the random hex listed on the lower left hand side of the card. N8, which is where the sniper will hit. Well, what do you know? Talk about being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Bang! Now, of course, snipers don't always hit a target, but I have seen it happen, so it certainly can happen. The results of a sniper actually hitting a target is a unit will break. So the Axis unit here breaks, and to represent a broken unit, the chit is simply flipped over to its other side. In most cases, this reduces the unit's statistics, leaving them in a weakened, more vulnerable state. Now previously, when I kept track of my attack total on the victory point track, you may have thought, well, why do that? Well, the reason is, triggers can interrupt the flow of the game, and it can be hard to recall exactly where you were before the trigger occurred. Keeping track of attack totals on the victory point path means it will be easy to just jump back into resolving a fire order. And it's worth mentioning some triggered events may involve decisions as well, so they may take a bit longer than a sniper attack to resolve. Let's return back to resolving that fire order. I have my attack total, which is 13. My opponent now has to make a defense roll for each of his units in that hex, which of course there was only one. The Axis unit makes a roll, again by revealing the top card from his own draw deck. He was hoping that this roll, when added to his morale value, which is currently 7, would be greater than my attack total, which it didn't quite make it. His roll was only a 3, and 3 plus 7 is 10, versus my attack total of 13. As a result of me having a stronger attack total, this means the unit breaks again. But because this unit is already broken, the unit is eliminated and placed on the casualty track here, which brings the Axis player one step closer to losing the game. Now, I'll end the overview here, but there is so much more to the game. I mean it, I've not even touched on a quarter of what can happen in this game. There are more orders I haven't touched base on. I haven't even spoken about how melee combat works, but I'll tell you now, melee can be particularly brutal in this game. Artillery may also play a part in some scenarios, and I just love artillery. It's tons of fun. It basically works by having a leader as a spotter, and the closer the spotter is to the target, the more likely it is that the artillery is going to hit. However, if it turns out that the artillery wasn't all that accurate, your spotter might be right underneath where the artillery ends up landing, and it's devastating when that happens. There are also many different types of units, different weapons to attach to them. Leaders play a very big part in the game because leaders can activate surrounding units to participate in a single order. There is also opportunity fire, which may give a player the chance to react to an enemy unit's movement through their line of sight by taking a shot at them, and the list goes on. There's barbed wire, smoke can be a hindrance, unexpected reinforcements may arrive due to triggered events. Honestly, it's a very hard game to cover in a review because so much can happen in a game of Combat Commander. At first it may seem like the triggered events in this game add a lot of randomness, and you know what? To some degree they do. However, rather than these random events removing meaningful decisions, these events just add flavour, they add narrative. The best way of describing it, I think, is they create the environment, they simulate the action of the battlefield, and they do it really well. The events are random, but they're also thematic, so they work really well here, and the game, in my opinion, would not be as much fun to play without them. When that red box shows up on a roll, there's this moment where both players are going to be like, you know, what's going to happen, what's it going to be? And I really love that, because it creates some enjoyable, very enjoyable and memorable moments. Now, not every game of Combat Commander I've played has been as enjoyable as others. I certainly do like the game. I've even picked up some expansions for it. But some of the games I've played of it have dragged on a little bit too long, and in some games the luck of the draw has been a bit frustrating. And I think it's worth explaining in more detail what I mean by that. One of the options you have in your turn is if you don't have any useful cards, you can sacrifice all of your turn to discard and pick up cards. And hand management obviously plays a huge part in the game. But there has been the odd occasion where at the start of a game, I've been the attacker and I've had to take this option over and over and over and over and over again just to get a move card. And I mean, that's just the luck of the draw, but it really isn't an entertaining start to the game when that happens, and you really just need a move card for the action to begin. Still, for all of the so-so games of this I've played, there have been many more absolutely memorable, tense, exciting and just close games of it, so I'm willing to play a game of Combat Commander more often than not. It is a type of game that will likely take a few plays to learn it. It is fairly complex. I think, however, the complexity here comes from knowing exactly how much of the game you need to know to be able to play it. There are a lot of rules, but not all of them will come into effect with the scenario you've chosen to play. For example, artillery won't play a part in every game, so knowing the rules for artillery, to start off at least, isn't necessary, and it's the same with many other rules too. The rulebook is pretty clear though, which is good, so it is made as easy as it could be to learn the game, and the rulebook is also easy to reference to, and even after multiple plays you will likely be referring to the rulebook at times. It's just the nature of the game because many different things can happen. Overall, Combat Commander is a fun war game. As with any game, you should be playing to win the game, of course, but ultimately you should be playing for the adventure. That's the bigger picture, and that couldn't be truer here. If you're the type of person who can't stand a random feature in a game sort of taking control at times, Combat Commander might not be for you. To give you a better idea of what I mean, I once played a game of Combat Commander where it was neck and neck. If either of us eliminated one more enemy unit, that would be enough to force the other player to surrender. Very, very, very tense game. My opponent then, believe it or not, triggered an event, and the event was that he moved his surrender marker one space forward, meaning I now had to eliminate 2 of his units to win, and he still only had to eliminate 1 of mine to win. That random event was a contributing factor that helped him eventually win the game. That kind of thing can happen, and I'm sure not everyone would like that. But all I can say is this: that was without doubt the best game of Combat Commander I ever played. It was close, exciting, just great fun. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again soon. It's just not the same.